Members, we now move on to questions to the Assembly Commission. Questions 4 and 8 have been withdrawn. I therefore call Mike Nesbitt.
Deputy Speaker, question 1.
And I call John O'Dowd.
I thank the member for his question. The Assembly Commission has at all times sought to apply the regulations when they were in place and the guidance issued by the Executive in a pragmatic and practical manner. This has included the guidance that staff should work from home where possible. As this guidance is still in place, the Assembly Commission has sought to facilitate working from home where it is possible. The Assembly Commission does not record the average numbers of staff working in person in Parliament buildings each day. The number or proportion of Assembly Commission staff working in person in Parliament buildings to support the work of the Assembly is dependent on business need and will fluctuate from day to day. I think that members will recognise that throughout the pandemic, a significant number of staff have been working in the building on different days, particularly to ensure that the Assembly and its committees continue to do business. It was incredibly important that the Assembly remained able to make decisions and pass legislation during this period. Members will be aware that officials have undertaken a lot of work to adapt how the Assembly works to deal with the constraints created by the pandemic. I would therefore take this opportunity to record the thanks of the Assembly Commission to our staff for the continued support that they have given to us throughout this challenging time.
Supplementary for Mike Nesbitt.
I thank Mr O'Dowd and I join him in thanking Assembly staff for the work during the pandemic. Has there been or will there be any assessment of the impact on productivity of working from home? And is there a plan for the future, a return to what was or a hybrid future for staff?
An analysis of the outworkings of the Assembly, I'm sure, is possible. A lot of that work depends on the people in this room, of course, how productive we are rather than how productive Assembly Commission staff are, in fairness to them. But certainly it's something that I'm sure officials will take note of. In regards moving forward, the Assembly Commission has given staff a commitment to develop a home working policy and that process is well advanced. A draft policy has been consulted on with all staff and trade union side on foot of the consultation responses. A revised policy is currently being developed.
Call John Stewart.
Question number 2, please.
And Trevor Clark is responding.
Can I thank the member for their question? The Speaker launched the exhibition on Friday the 4th of March 2022 and at the event in the Great Hall to coincide with the first Women's Parliament. The launch was attended by members of the Assembly's Women's Caucus, Parliament participants and some of the women who featured in the exhibition, and academics, Assembly Commission staff who had also assisted in the exhibition.
Mr Stewart for supplementary.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Commission member for his response to that. I just want to praise the exhibition itself and say how important it is that we promote the valuable contribution that women make to politics here. I'm just wondering, are there any plans to extend the exhibition or even to take it on tour to local museums and community centres where young women in our community can see the positive benefit that women make to politics here and potentially get more involved in political interaction?
There's no immediate plans, I believe, but the exhibition will be retained for future use. And particularly will be used to focus on future outreach events, including the potential to use the exhibition in locations outside of Parliament buildings.
Next year, I'm Sir Pádraig Largy for you cast the card. I call Pádraig Largy.
Question 3.
Glorious Kelly to Glorious Fraggart.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for his question, and I'm pleased to inform him that the review on the display of artefacts is at a very advanced stage, and the member may have seen the letter the Speaker issued on behalf of the Assembly Commission earlier today. The review was undertaken by a working group comprised of officials and Dr Eamon Phoenix. It was conducted in line with a set of principles agreed by the Assembly Commission. While it is challenging, members have been invited to a launch for the new display on Wednesday the 23rd of March, and I don't want to preempt the launch, but I will give members an overview. The new display reflects the history of the parliamentary and political institutions connected to this building. That includes the period from the original Parliament in 1921. It also covers the background to the Good Friday Agreement and the creation of this Assembly, as well as subsequent political negotiations over the years. The major figures and events over the past 100 years have been reflected in a way which ensures that all political perspectives of the Assembly are reflected. This will see a number of portraits and photographs displayed in the corridors for the first time. It would also mean a number of the Assembly Commission's artefacts will be taken out of storage or moved from locations where they were not accessible to the public. I would highlight that the Assembly Commission believes that the new range of items on display will be a major addition to the experience of visitors to the building, and it seeks to provide visitors with a context to our current politics. The Commission believes the exhibition will be a positive addition to this building, and this has been a significant project involving a lot of work for officials. On behalf of the Assembly Commission, I would like to thank them for their hard work.
Supplementary question for Pádraig Larry.
Thank the member for her answer. Would the member agree with me that it's important that Parliament buildings, through its artefacts and symbols, reflects the diverse community which it represents?
Absolutely. That is something that was very much at the forefront of the Assembly Commission's mind, and indeed the instructions given to the officials, and we relied heavily upon Dr Eamon Phoenix and others to ensure that we had as diverse a range as possible. Obviously, it would have been, I think, probably much more reflective if politics in the past had reflected the diverse community that we represent, particularly women, but I think we have.
Jim Allister.
Someone who's campaigned on the artefacts issue for many years, I will reserve judgment until I see the exhibition and the permanency of it. But can I ask the specific question? Will portraits of former Prime Ministers of Northern Ireland be on permanent display?
Mr Deputy Speaker, there's a number of figures that will be on display, and obviously there will be some feedback required by the new Assembly and the new mandate as to the success or otherwise of that. That does not mean, however, given the number of artefacts we have, it does not at this stage suggest...
Mrs Kelly, if members wish to have private conversations, they're not so private in here because they can be audible up here. Okay, thank you. Continue,
it is not my understanding that at this point that former Prime Ministers will be on permanent display, but I will ascertain the facts of that and write to the member accordingly.
Sir Colin McGrath, I call for Colin McGrath.
Question number 5, Sir Deputy Speaker.
John Blair's responding.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I thank the member for his question. The member will be aware, Deputy Speaker, that the Assembly Commission has only responsibility for the lawns adjacent to Parliament buildings within its curtilage, and those end at the railings to the front of the building. Beyond that, the management of the Stormont Estate falls within the remit of the Department of Finance, and specifically the Estates Management Unit. While the Assembly Commission has not considered an alternative use for the lawns within its responsibility, support and encouragement for biodiversity and pollinators has been put in place through the installation of an apiary at the west side of Parliament buildings. As well as increasing biodiversity and supporting pollinators, the apiary is used to raise awareness of the dwindling numbers of native bees. Works on the Stormont Estate under the control of the Department of Finance are informed by the Stormont Estate Woodland Management Plan and the Conservation Management Plan. These plans have not recommended rewilding of the formal lawn areas. Across the wider Stormont Estate, the Estate Management Unit has provided a woodland environment with minimal intrusion to help protect and expand the habitat for plant and animal life. The Assembly Commission, through the Events Office and the Education Office, promotes the nature trails throughout the estate and encourages visitors and school groups to make use of the grounds when they visit Parliament buildings. In this regard, the Assembly Commission's Sustainable Development Office is a partner of the Eco Schools Group and helps raise awareness of the wildlife and our bees in particular in the estate when meeting with school groups. The Assembly Commission's Sustainable Development Office continues to liaise closely with the Estates Management Unit in order to enhance the biodiversity around Parliament buildings by whatever means possible.
Colin McGrath, supplementary question for Colin McGrath.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for the answer. It's a bit disappointing to hear that, given that we've got such large, expansive lawns to the front and the side of this building, that we couldn't use even just a small portion of them for some sort of biodiversity and rewilding project, because I think that we could set a good example by having such a facility here, and maybe that might be something that the Commission could consider, and maybe the member could bring that back to the Commission to see if that is possible. And given that you've referenced some of the other facilities within the Stormont estate, is there some sort of formal partnership between the Department of Finance and the Commission, given that most people see the estate as one, and see if there's some projects that could be done jointly?
Deputy Speaker, as I understand it, there would be regular contact between the Department of Finance and the Assembly Commission in relation to the estates matters, and especially where the estate for which the Commission is responsible interfaces with the remaining Stormont estate. I am more than happy to take the suggestion of further work in this regard back to the Commission for work through that Commission and also through the Sustainable Development Office.
Cash-dig Philip McGuigan, question for
last Collier. And just following on, I suppose, from the previous question, could I ask maybe if the Commission would engage with wildlife organisations such as the RSPB to see what else it could do to support and encourage wildlife around the environs of the Assembly building?
Deputy Speaker, I thank the member for that question also. The Sustainable Development Office will continue to work closely with the Estates Management Unit, as I outlined before, and to encourage visitors to Parliament buildings to avail of walking trails, for example, throughout the Stormont estate. There's no reason, therefore, why the suggestion in the previous question to extend that further to other biodiversity trials could not also be done in conjunction with environmental groups, and I'm happy to take that back in conjunction with the previous point.
I called Keith Buchanan.
Mr Deputy Speaker, question number 6, please.
And Trevor Clark is responding.
Can I thank the member for his question? The Assembly Commission, in conjunction with the designers and the contractors, have been investigating a number of water ingress issues in Parliament buildings, but so far have been unable to successfully address all of the issues. Having been unable to agree on the cause of and the responsibility for these issues, the Assembly Commission instructed solicitors in June 2021 to advise on determining liability for the defects. The external experts have prepared preliminary expert reports in this matter, and the Council has been instructed. Given that the Assembly Commission may need to resolve this matter through legal proceedings, the Assembly Commission needs to be careful in its public comments on this matter. But I can advise that the Assembly Commission has agreed that there should be an initial effort between the parties to resolve issues of liability through mediation. Failing that, the Commission will issue legal proceedings against those responsible for the defects.
Supplementary for Keith Buchanan.
Thank you. And I must say, at times, that this building looks a bit like Steptoe's, and some people in this building will obviously understand what I'm referring to. It looks more like Steptoe's house than it is the seat of government. There's that many buckets around. That said, does that mean that the repairs can't be carried out until liability is on whose side that becomes responsible for? Therefore, we're still going to have the leaks until liability is clarified through the solicitor or legal route?
The Assembly Commission is closely monitoring the defects that you've referred to and determine whether remedial works are needed to be carried out in advance of an agreement as to the liability.
Here, Mr. Ciara Ferguson. Cash I call Ciara Ferguson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Can the Commission offer assurances to us that everything you're doing will ensure that the public purse is being, is protected in this attempt to reach a resolution on this issue?
I can give you that assurance, and I think that's why the Assembly has went to great lengths in terms of the mediation process to try and get value for money for the Assembly and for the wider public.
And I call Jim Allister.
Can the Commission advise us, when does the limitation period expire in respect of this matter, and what has been the cost to date of such work as has been done?
Can I thank the member for the question? I haven't that information in front of me today, but I will get a follow-up answer in more detail.
I can see him, Sir Colm Gildernew, Cash I call Colm Gildernew.
Gormy Agad, last Collier, Cash ever a shocked question 7, please.
I can see him. Dolores Kelly, Nafragri Hodge.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for his question. An update on the current COVID-19 health and safety measures was issued to all users of Parliament buildings on the 1st of March 2022. That update set out the current arrangements for ensuring the continuing safety of everyone in this building. The update noted that all coronavirus regulations have ended, but it also advised that the Assembly Commission will seek to follow the public health guidance that remains in place. This is entirely in line with the responsible and effective approach that has been adopted up to this point. The current measures to ensure everyone's safety include encouraging the wearing of face coverings in areas of the building that can become congested and suggesting that a distance of 1 metre should be maintained throughout Parliament buildings. Naturally, the use of hand sanitiser remains in place, as do the protective screens that have also been in place for some time. The Assembly Commission is acutely aware that in the absence of regulations, much of the response to the risk of COVID-19 infection is centred around personal responsibility. In this regard, the Assembly Commission would commend the responsible approach adopted by building users and encourage that to continue.
Cash Brescia, Colm Gilding, supplementary question for Colm Gilding.
Cormac, and I thank the Commission member for that answer. Will the Commission continue to provide and encourage adherence to guidance to protect visitors, staff and members in Parliament buildings?
The member is right to urge a cautious approach because we know that the infection continues to be rife throughout the community, although thankfully the consequences of it are not as fatal as they were a year ago or even a few months ago. However, whilst the Commission can issue the staff can issue instruction to staff, it would be for party whips and party leaders actually to encourage political party representatives to pursue a cautionary approach and to follow the guidelines.
I call Mervyn Story.
Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Commission members for their answers thus far. And I concur with the comments in relation to being cautious. But how long are we going to be in a situation, even though we're in the last couple of weeks of this mandate, where the stationery office in this building is closed to members and to their staff? And that has been the case since the commencement of the restrictions.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I thank the member for drawing that to our attention. I'm acutely aware of that. The guidance, as you know, is continuously reviewed by the Commission, and we don't second-guess the Executive. But if there are particular issues around particular service provision, that's something we want to hear about, and we will reassess and make recommendation and come back to you on that.
I call Jim Allister.
Question 9.
Mr. Robbie Butler to respond.
Thank the member for his question. As the member will be aware, the Assembly Commission agreed an approach for the decades of centenaries, which requires that any Assembly Commission decisions to mark centenaries be agreed by consensus. The Assembly Commission did agree a programme of events for the centenary. However, political consensus could not be reached on the proposal for a centenary stone when it was considered previously. While it is possible for the Assembly Commission to reconsider any proposal made to it, the issue would remain one of being able to be reached by political consensus.
Supplementary question, Mr. Allister.
And by consensus, the member means that it is subject to the bigotry of the Sinn Féin veto, and that is why this issue has never been addressed. One would have thought that if it is within the capacity of the Commission to address the Platinum Jubilee to the limited extent it did, it surely is not beyond it to address the issue of the centenary of the place where this Assembly, the country which this Assembly purports to preside over.
Just before we respond, just caution members about the use of the certain terminology, please, and be careful in the use of words. Okay, Mr. Butler.
I thank the member for his supplementary question. The member will know that I am here to reflect the Assembly Commission's corporate and agreed position rather than my own personal view. It's no secret that there were different views within the Assembly Commission on this particular matter, but that reflects the politics of the Assembly itself.
I call Mr. Mervyn Story.
Question 10, Deputy Speaker.
John Blair to respond.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank the member for his question. The Department of Finance has engaged with the Assembly Commission officials to consider policies and decision-making processes that the Assembly Commission has in place to govern events and requests for commemorations in Parliament buildings. In particular, Assembly Commission officials have provided an update on the review of artefacts the Assembly Commission has recently conducted and the principles which were agreed for that process. Those principles were agreed on the Assembly Commission by all parties and acknowledge the need to be inclusive of and sensitive to different political views across the Assembly. If the Department of Finance seeks further formal input from the Assembly Commission, that will of course be considered positively. However, it is for the Department of Finance to determine how any review dealing with the Stormont estate itself is conducted.
Mr. Story for supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and thank the Commission member for his answer. But given the successful event which was held in the grounds of this estate on Monday, which was to mark Her Majesty's Platinum Reign, and it was actually held on Commonwealth Day, does that not show that when there is the absence of bigotry, when there is the absence of political prejudice, that an agreement can be reached which reflects the history and the accuracy of Northern Ireland? And will the member commit to having further discussions with the Department of Finance to ensure that those outstanding issues where there has been a failure on their part to deliver will be looked at in regards to our history and our heritage?
Deputy Speaker, I am not in a position individually at this point to make a commitment on behalf of the Commission, but I am sure the points raised by the member will be considered. The occasion that the member referred to was, of course, Deputy Speaker, held within the precincts of Parliament buildings and was therefore a matter for the Assembly Commission and not the Department.
I call Rachel Woods.
Question 11.
I can see them, Sir John O'Dowd and Fagro Horch.
I thank the member for her question. The Assembly Members' Pension Scheme is a trust-based occupational pension scheme. Up to 5 members are appointed by resolution of the Assembly to act as trustees. The trustees are responsible for administering the pension fund in accordance with the scheme rules, the law as it relates to the pensions and pensions regularity guidance. The trustees have appointed an investment manager to invest the pension fund on a day-to-day basis. That appointment and the direction of the investment manager is a matter for the pension trustees. While this is a matter for the pension trustees and not the Assembly Commission, I am advised that the trustees have recently appointed a new investment manager. In doing so, they ensured that the need to be able to undertake socially responsible investments was included in the specification for the new investment managers. The member may wish to contact the trustees to discuss this matter further.
Supplementary for Rachel Woods.
Speaker, and I thank the member for his answer. I've continuously contacted the trustees in the last 2 years and I'm yet to receive an actual firm date of when I'm going to meet them. But the war in Ukraine has brought a sharp focus to the reliance on Russian fossil fuels and companies. So can the member assure this House that there will be a full review recommended by the Commission into the amount invested in the NIAMPS pension scheme, of which every member in this House, I believe, is a member of, into Russian oil, coal and gas?
Just for openness and transparency, just to declare an interest, I was a trustee in the last mandate, but I haven't been a trustee in this mandate. Again, I say while the Assembly Commission makes pension contributions, the pension scheme is administered by the trustees and not by the Assembly Commission. Therefore, where the money is invested does not fall to the Assembly Commission.
Sinead Bradley. I call Sinead Bradley.
Question 12.
Trevor Clark's responding.
Can I thank the member for her question? The energy costs for Parliament buildings relate to gas and electricity usage. The Assembly Commission avails of a Department of Finance framework for the provision of gas, and it also uses a DOF contract to purchase its 100% renewable electricity. The total energy cost for Parliament buildings for this financial year 21-22 is forecast to be just under 480,000. This is an increase of 194,000, almost 68% of up on the cost of 286,000 in 2020-2021.
Ceist Brescia, Sinead Bradley. Supplementary question for Sinead Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank the member for the answer. 480,000, that's a staggering amount and no doubt will increase. And I would ask the Commission, will you investigate why on the hottest days of the year the heating in this building remains on? And can we find the off button, please?
Can I thank the member for her supplementary question? I think the Assembly Commission will consider what you have raised. I think it's very much in their minds at the minute, given the rising energy costs, something that's out with the control of the Assembly itself.
Question number 13, the member's not in the chamber. I now call George Robinson.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, question 14.
And Mr. Robbie Butler is to respond.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, question 14 is a bit of a record in any sitting, isn't it? I thank the member for his question. The member will be aware that the Assembly Commission agreed to a request from the Assembly branch of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association to grant permission to plant a tree in the grounds adjacent to Parliament buildings to mark Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee. That decision was agreed unanimously on the Assembly Commission, by the Assembly Commission, and I think that was welcomed by all members as being very positive. Members will also be aware that a Speaker's event was held yesterday on Commonwealth Day. At that event, the tree to mark the Platinum Jubilee was officially planted by members of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association branch and members of the Assembly Commission. The member will be aware that the main focal point of celebrations for the Platinum Jubilee will be an extended public holiday from the 2nd to the 5th of June. The responsibility for leading the Assembly in marking civic events and other important occasions comes within the Speaker's representational role. Members who were here in 2012 may recall that Speaker Hay held a concert in the Great Hall to mark the Diamond Jubilee with the then Lord Lieutenant Dame Mary Peters. Obviously, after the May election, the Assembly is expected to elect a new Speaker. It will therefore be for the Speaker at that time to determine any additional arrangements for how the Assembly marks the Platinum Jubilee in advance of the June focal point.
And supplementary questions, George Robinson.
Thank the member for his answer. And if whoever the Speaker would agree, as this is a unique event that will never happen again, and to recognise the outstanding service Her Majesty has given to her country, including Northern Ireland, could an invitation be extended to the Palace for Her Majesty to attend this momentous event here in Northern Ireland?
I thank the member for his very useful supplementary question. The issue of official invites to visit the Assembly and Parliament buildings is the responsibility of the Speaker, not the Assembly Commission. Clearly, we will all be aware that it is not possible to know how full a programme of travel and events Her Majesty the Queen will be able to undertake for the Platinum Jubilee. However, it is also the normal protocol that such invites are best taken forward by official channels rather than through a debate on the floor of the Chamber. Thank you.
And members, that concludes our Assembly questions to the Assembly Commission. Just Mr. O'Dowd.